60 years dedicated to the eradication of the screwworm. And, suddenly, it wasn't working. Cattle were dying. Fields of them. If I learned one thing studying biology, you can only push nature so far before it pushes back. Was it climate change? The sterile insect technique? The United States government hired me to find out. It was a tough decision. After all, I had just been offered to lead the entomology department at UC Davis. My wife was 6 months pregnant. I told her this was too important. Even if it meant moving to Panama for a year, I had to do this. My wife refused to let me go alone. God, I love her. The first farm I investigated, I puked before even seeing the cattle. The smell brought me to my knees. The farmer showed me his pasture. It was a massacre. 300 festering cows, flies like black fog swarming everywhere. A haunting buzz above the stench. The farmer begged me to let him burn it all. I need samples first. Then you do whatever the hell you want. I brought back larvae and flies to the lab. We'd need to observe them for several days to gather data. But I knew one thing. The flies had changed. The females had grown what I could only call a proboscis-like horn. It might as well have been a new species. The females no longer needed to find an orifice or wound. They just needed to find something warm, blooded, and they could make an incision to lay their eggs in. Back home, my wife asked how was work. I said, "Oh, just bug stuff. How are you?" She wasn't feeling well, she said. Something with the baby. Felt wrong. Wrong how? Just wrong. I tried to take her to the hospital, but she didn't want to go. I told her to let me know if anything felt worse. After about 2 weeks in the lab, we made the horrible discovery. Parthenogenesis. We had been sterilizing the males for decades, so the females mutated to self-fertilize their eggs. And they were laying a lot. I said to a lab assistant, "These mutations, they aren't natural. Nothing like them has ever been observed. We should be afraid. There are 200 million bugs for every one of US. We got brains, but they got the numbers. These mutations, they might move US down the food chain." That's when my wife called. She screamed for help. I rushed home. I found my wife in the kitchen, her stomach cut open wide. Blood everywhere. So much blood I slipped in it. "I had to get it out of me," she whispered. "It was eating me from the inside. Where's our child?" She pointed across the room to a wiggling mass. Under all the blood was a screwworm larva the size of a cat. Hanging out of its mouth was the arm of my newborn child.